coming up.
Come on, sir, you know that. You're a brilliant student. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. You know that that's not fair what you're doing.
This is a conversation you don't want to miss. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments.
Okay, so like you pointed out, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John read the sources, right? As it turns out, about a year ago, I thought I came to Stanford. I thought I have all these smart friends who are Christians. I might as well start looking into it, right?
Great.
And then I open up Matthew and I open up Luke, and suddenly it becomes apparent to me that, okay, something's not right here. And here's my claim, and then I'll back it up with some evidence. The gospel writers are willing to intentionally manipulate historical facts in order to fulfill a theological purpose. And here's why I say this. In Luke, the family is originally from Bethlehem. Then, hold on, I have this in my notes here. Sorry, they're from Nazareth. They go to Bethlehem for a census. Apparently there's this Roman census. People have to go back to their ancestral homeland. And so they're back in Bethlehem. That's where Jesus is born. And the family returns to Nazareth. Only problem is there's no account of such a census. There's no record of such a census. If there were such a census, it wouldn't even make sense for people to return to their ancestral homelands, because the Romans wanted to see what property they had for tax purposes, and the property would still be back at home. So the reason that the author has the family go to Bethlehem on this short trip is because of the prophecy in Micah 5:2, right? That out of the Messiah will come from Bethlehem. And then I go to Matthew, right? In Matthew, there's this story about Herod and how the family is in Matthew 2. Jesus is born in Bethlehem. There's no backstory of how they got there. Then they're afraid of Herod. They flee to Egypt, and then they return to Nazareth, right? Joseph wants to go back to Judea, but they're afraid of Herod's son, and so they go to Nazareth. And in Matthew 2:23 it says, and so the prophecy was fulfilled, right? That the Messiah should be called a Nazarene, or something like that, right? There's the only problem with that is there's no such prophecy. I think the scholars or the consensus is that it was a mistranslation of the Hebrew word nazir, which means consecrated one. And so he made this mistake, and because of this translation mistake, he invents this whole prophecy for why Joseph chose Nazareth instead of going back to Judea. So either way, like whichever ones you want to say are correct here, they've created this irreconcilable birth narrative. They need Jesus to be born in Bethlehem, and so Luke invents a census. Matthew comes up with a prophecy that doesn't even exist to justify why they were in Nazareth. Either way, my claim is that they were willing. One of those two, at least, were willing to twist a historical fact in order to align with the theological narrative that they wanted to make Jesus conform to.
Different perspectives between Matthew and Luke. Obviously, Jesus grew up in Nazareth, but he was born in Bethlehem. No problem, no contradiction. Different perspectives. And sir, every time you put together history, you want different perspectives that include different details. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I trust the Gospels to give me accurate historical information, because they have similarities and dissimilarities. And if you study AP and Reuters and CNN and Fox, there better be some dissimilarities in the reportage. They better not be carbon copies. Otherwise, we got a real problem. So you're right. We have different perspectives in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Different details included, other details excluded from different ones. That's one of the reasons I trust them as historically viable, because of the similarities and the dissimilarities. Similarities on the majors, dissimilarities on the minors.
Why would they have to go back to their ancestral homeland for a census?
Because in Israel and Palestine at that point, that was the requirement, to Bethlehem, because it was the house of David.
If there was a census throughout Rome, the Roman Empire, there would be no record of all these people traveling back to their homelands.
It's recorded as happening in Palestine, in Israel. Okay, it's not saying that every part of the Roman Empire. It's similar to Paul saying, I preach the gospel to the whole world. Did Paul go to Antarctica? Did he go to Australia? No, but he's using the word whole world to talk about the known world at that point. So obviously the gospel writers are talking about the known world at this point, there was a census taken and people went back to their ancestral homeland.
No other attestation whatsoever of this census where everyone has to go back to their homelands.
Not everyone in the whole empire.
Happens to fulfill this prophecy.
Oh, baloney. That's not fair at all intellectually. And they have to go back to their family homeland, their family town of birth. It's not a problem.
Convenient, isn't it?
What do you mean convenient? Every number of years they took a census.
But no other census where we have anyone saying that they have to go back to their ancestral homeland.
Fine. But they took censuses, and it happened that in Israel you had to go back to your town of birth or your family birthplace.
Okay, so again, this is where I think if we have no record of anything like this, through something we would obviously have records if there was this massive census where everyone had to go back. This is why I think there's at least some evidence to say this. But then let's go to Matthew then. He's saying that they went to Nazareth. This prophecy in Matthew 2:23 was fulfilled, but the prophecy never existed. So at the very least, we have these irreconcilable birth narratives, right?
The reason you're wrong, I'll tell you why you're wrong, because you are addressing Old Testament prophecies that are used in a very difficult way. Those Old Testament prophecies that Matthew, Mark, Luke, well, especially Matthew, uses to show that Jesus is Messiah are very difficult to interpret. No question about it. We agree. But there's no massive contradiction. Instead, it's a real difficulty. Matthew, how are you using this Old Testament prophecy to show that Jesus is really Messiah? Very difficult issue, we agree. Very difficult.
So then, either way, what you have is a birth narrative that cannot be reconciled, that the family fled to Egypt
true at all.
And come back to
That's
Nazareth?
not true at
or
all.
Did they go
That's
to
not
Bethlehem
fair.
for a census? Which one is it?
If you were to apply the degree of specificity that you're demanding out of the Gospels to every text you read, you'd have to jettison every text you read. You are being hyper-skeptical. Skepticism is good. Be skeptical. Don't be hyper-skeptical. It'll get you in a lot of trouble.
We have a contradiction. In Matthew, there's the flight to Egypt, and then they come to Nazareth, right? When they come to Nazareth, they're introduced to this town of Nazareth.
Where's the contradiction? You still haven't given it to me.
Yeah, in Luke, they don't do that. They just go to Bethlehem
It's silent.
and come home.
You cannot say there's a contradiction when a text is silent and another text makes another point. That is so dishonest intellectually, it's scary. If one U.S. history book talks about the Battle of Gettysburg and the other U.S. history book makes no mention of the Battle of Gettysburg, you do not have a contradiction. You have no contradiction when one text is silent. Come on, sir, you know that. You're a brilliant student. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. You know that that's not fair what you're doing.
It's even more fair what you're not doing, because you're saying the census just so happened in this one place in the Gospels and we have no record of it.
That's baloney. There are plenty of records of a census being taken. Quirinius was governor in 4 AD. Wow, that's a really long gestation period for Mary to have Jesus in her womb. Well, wait a second. There's evidence that Quirinius was governor of Syria in 4 BC as well. So there's no big problem. They're difficult issues. Yes, I agree with you. We've already said that. They're difficult issues, but there's no contradiction.
In Matthew, at least, Herod's order to kill the infants, right? Why? Okay, if Herod was killing the infants, we'd assume there was some historical record of this outside of the
You gotta be kidding me. You think the Romans are concerned about whether Herod slaughters little babies? You think they're going to make a record of that in the Roman history? Are you kidding me? He goes to Bethlehem and has his soldiers slaughter infants in Bethlehem. And if you think the Romans are going to be too concerned about a few babies slaughtered in Bethlehem, and therefore Pliny and Suetonius and Tacitus and all the great Roman historians are going to write, oh boy, Herod was a naughty boy. He slaughtered a few babies in Bethlehem. Come on, get real.
So if you guys are keeping track, here's what we have so far. A census we have no record of, and Herod the infants, so much that this family had to flee, right? And no record of this. All these people living in Judea, right? We have not one record of Herod ordering the of these infants.
Yes, you do.
One line.
In the Gospels, you do.
Exactly. So that's what I mean. There's no other attestation outside of...
yeah, fine. And where's the record of Jesus walking on the water in Roman history? Come on, sir.
That's my
You're
claim.
being so intellectually dishonest. It's scary.
The two of them are making it up at the very least.
No, they're not making it up. They are recording a very accurate historical event. And just because you don't have a bunch of Roman historians around doing it as well...
Any record whatsoever.
Yeah, you don't have a bunch of historians running around saying exactly what happened in Syria, in Israel, in Africa, in Europe. You don't have that degree of specificity in history.
Okay,
You're being hyper skeptical, sir. It's not fair.